How are we? This is Chat UTD. So it's all but been confirmed that Michael Carrick will sign a 2-year deal at Manchester United to be the permanent manager. Dotting the I's, crossing the T's. No surprise. Said it for a while, that was obviously on the cards. I said perhaps a year would be the compromise that I'd be happy with, but it was too much of a common sense decision for United to make, and obviously they've not made that decision. They've given him the same length of contract they gave to Ruben Amorim when he first came in. I'm not making too much of a comment on Carrick. I've said what I've said about him and the credentials he's got to do the job. Just a couple of observations on the process and maybe what that symbolises about United as well. Firstly, you can't trust a word this board says, this ownership says, because they said that this would be a thorough process where they interviewed a number of candidates and looked for the best in class option. They haven't done that. They've had no intent to do that. I firmly believe that from minute one, when they appointed Carrick as the interim manager, they were hoping that what has happened would happen and they could make an easy decision just to give him the job. And in fairness, to caveat that and to sort of balance that a little bit, it's not an outrageous decision. It's quite an easy decision to make, and it's not one that's going to cause too much of a problem with most people. It's not an outrageous decision of any kind. You can see the merits of giving him the job. But I would say that they've never had any intent to run a proper process, and which is what they told us. The other observation I'd say is that it's what it says about United as a club moving forward in a number of different ways. I don't think we can attract top managers. I don't think we want to pay money to get managers out of jobs, or we haven't got the money to get managers out of jobs. And I wonder if the club even want to get top managers in, because I think they want people who will dance to their tune. I don't think they want, there's not that many pedigree managers out there, but I don't think they want a pedigree manager, because a pedigree manager would demand autonomy, and they don't want a manager to have autonomy. And in fairness, that is true to what they said when they first came in. The noises that were put out there when Ineos first came in was that they wanted to have the vision of the football vision of the club set by the chief executive and the director of football, and a manager's job was to come in and bring that to fruition. And I did a video on here probably more than 2 years ago, sort of saying, don't be surprised if we get some left field appointments, and certainly some appointments that maybe aren't so necessarily the big names we might expect. One, because there's not that many big name managers out there anymore, but two, they might not want that, and maybe it's more about the guys that are setting the vision, the chief executive and the director of football. And that's fine if the director of football and the chief executive are class operators, are best in class operators. And Dan Ashworth was the one that they brought in alongside Omar Barada originally. I'm sorry, Jason Wilcox is not a best in class operator. So the people making the decisions to bring in the manager, if the manager is no longer the most important person in the club, they need to be spot on. And these guys for me are not spot on. I don't see any reference point to suggest that they are, and that's a big concern. And I almost feel like this is going to follow the pattern that we've had before, where we've got in the Champions League, we've had a decent season, we've got in the Champions League, and the club has rested on their laurels. They've probably thought to themselves, we don't need to spend that much money because we're in the Champions League. They've got complacent, they haven't built on it. They haven't taken the opportunity that's been in front of them, and what's followed has been a really difficult season. And I can foresee that might happen again here. And I wonder if, well, newsflash, I don't like this board. I think they're a bunch of idiots. I think they're incompetent. I think there's no reference point for success here at all. And one of my big concerns is that I think they are dim-witted and arrogant enough to believe that, having finished 12 places higher than last year, which is an incredible feat, by the way, that they would look at this situation and say, well, we've just finished 12 places higher on our decision making, on what we've done last summer, on the work that we've done. we're responsible for this. Why is anyone getting on our backs here? Because this is incredible progress. We don't need to do a lot else. We've just finished 12 places higher than last year. That's only 2 places. We're third at the moment. We're not going to finish any lower than third. We finished 2 places higher. We're champions. We don't need to do a lot of work this summer. We don't need to spend a lot of money this summer. That's honestly what I think they will believe. Because as I say, it's that mixture of arrogance and dim-wittedness that will lead them to that. And also wanting to take shortcuts and not wanting to spend enough money. And the truth is, couldn't be more different. We need a lot of money spending. We need a lot of players in. And I look at what Carrick's done. What Carrick's done as an interim, by the way, is phenomenal. But the way we've played, for me, and I've said this before, I kind of have that feeling most weeks when we've won, where I've thought, well, I'm not sure I've won that game. I mean, we've got away with one there, or we've by hook or by crook, we've kind of scraped over the line. We've won so many games by the odd goal, which you could say is a really positive sign, by the way. But I think if you're often thinking to yourself, I'm not sure how we've won that game, not sure I've got away with that one, that indicates to me that that's not sustainable. Now, if it is sustainable, we're in business. Because if you transfer pro rata what we've done with him, with Carrick for the time he's been, if you translate that to a whole season, points-wise, you're looking at potentially a title-winning amount of points. But I'm not sure what we've done so far is transferable into a whole season, when the framing of his job, when the expectation on him and the whole picture changes when he becomes the permanent manager. That's why I think, another reason I think it could have been a shout just to keep it as a one year deal, because the framing of it isn't that different. Then you're not making a massive jump. So it all comes back to the same stuff, doesn't it? Look, Michael Carrick, good luck to him, fair play to him. Nothing would please me more than him being our version of an Arteta or a Guardiola or something along those lines. It would be phenomenal if he is. But the people around him are not good enough. Leon, who watches the channel and is one of my mates, we were having a bit of a back and forth the other day, and I said to him, for me, there's a number of different questions that it always comes back to for me. And I sent them as a message, but as I was sending them, I thought this is something to bring into Chat UTD, and I'm just going to bring them in now. Do successful clubs run like Manchester United? For me, no, they don't. Clubs that have got the blueprint of success all over them and are doing consistently, sustainably well, they don't run like we do. They don't make the same sort of decisions we do. They don't have the same ethos that we do. They don't have the same culture. They don't run the same as we do. Do Ineos have any reference point for success in football? No, they don't. And in fact, if anything, it's getting worse. Nice are in trouble this year. They're right near the bottom of the league in France. I mean, that's inexplicable, really. Are there any expert operators in key positions within the club? No. Are the owners driven primarily by monetary motivation or a desire for success on the pitch? It's not even an opinion, it's fact that they are primarily driven by monetary motivation. I think they want us to be successful. I don't think it's a burning desire of theirs. And the ultimate one, do you trust this ownership to take United forward in terms of sustainably winning things and being right back at the top? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Some people in the fan base sort of think that if you get a few decent players in, if you get a manager that understands the club, that you can almost supersede and outrun bad ownership. There's an old saying in gym training, you can't outtrain a bad diet. You can't supersede poor ownership. Poor ownership leads to poor results over a period of time. You might strike lucky once or twice, where you have the odd good season here or there. But 13 years of evidence suggests that the size of the club, a decent manager here or there, some good signings, a bit of momentum, it doesn't supersede poor ownership, because over a period of time, the pattern has been very much struggle, have a decent season, get in the Champions League, don't pounce on it, struggle again, and all the while managers are coming and going at this point, come back a little bit, struggle again. It's just up and down, up and down, up and down. And I personally don't think this is the precursor to a more sustainable upward trajectory for the team, for the club. So Carrick has done as I say, a stellar job as interim manager. Incredible. But so my beef is not with him at all. Well, why would it be? But the owners, if we appointed Julian Nagelsmann, if we appointed Luis Enrique, if we appointed Thomas Tuchel, whoever, Unai Emery, I'd probably feel the same. To be honest, I'd probably be a bit more excited. And I think you're stacking the odds more in your favour if you get someone like that in there. But it wouldn't work with this board because they want to call the shots. So Carrick is as good a shout as anybody else. But you're always, as I've used this analogy before, you're driving with your handbrake on. At some point, if you do that, your car's going to get knackered. And at some point, you're going to break it permanently. And I have gone back and forth with this. It's kind of mad that we finished 15th last season, and we have pretty much confirmed that third place now. We can't finish any higher or lower. It's 12 places higher. It's a ridiculous improvement. And if we had different owners and that had happened, my outlook would be completely different. But I don't trust these bastards. I have no reason to trust them. And I think they'll mess it up. And I think there's a huge opportunity here, because I watched the cup final today. City are a bang average football team. With the officials in their pockets, by the way. Arsenal, who could win the Champions League and Premier League double, are not great. Liverpool, one of the worst defending champions for years. So there's a Man United sized hole waiting for us to jump into. And I don't even think it'd take anything spectacular for us to do that. But it'll take a little bit of competence, it'll take a little bit of direction, because there's a big difference, you know, between getting 65 points, which we've got now, and all right, we might add a couple more points to it, 65, even 70 points. There's a big difference between that and getting to the mid to late 80s in terms of points. That level of consistency that you need, that mental fortitude, week after week after week, players staying fit, players playing through injury. Don't forget we've got the Champions League as well, which is going to add more games, League Cup, FA Cup. Those levels that I've banged on about all the time have to be consistently high, game in, game out. And I bring it back to something that I say, and I've said on this channel so many times, and this is just my own little criteria that I have. I look at the United team, I look at ability, of course I do, but then I think, right, how many of these players have the mental, emotional, psychological, and physical wherewithal to play for a club of the size of Manchester United with the expectations that some people have? And my expectation is United should be right at the top, season in, season out. And if I look at that squad, if I have that criteria in mind, there's nowhere near enough of them. Even players I like, they don't have that. There's probably two. And that's nowhere near enough. And we're talking about potentially having a tilt at the title in the next couple of years. Some people are. It's cloud cuckoo land for me. But I must say, this time last year, I predicted that this season that we're in right now, we would finish mid-table. And I was absolutely wrong. And I could be wrong again. The Forest game, for what it's worth, it's a nothing game. They can't go down anymore. We can't finish any higher or lower than third. It's the last home game of the season. It's Casemiro's farewell. It's maybe a chance for Fernandez to break the assist record, but it really is a dead rubber in many ways. It's a 12:30 kickoff. I don't think we're notoriously not great in early kickoffs. I can see it being a bit of a war of attrition. And in all honesty, it doesn't really matter. The season's kind of over, really, isn't it? So I'll probably watch. If I do watch, I'll do a proper player ratings thing afterwards, and feedback after the game tomorrow evening, probably. And then beyond that, I did my top 5 midfielder thing, uploaded that last night, and we'll move on to strikers next. If you've watched that top 5 midfielders one, please put comments on that video of what your top 5 would be. There isn't one yet, and I really wanted it to sort of get some interaction. So yeah, please do if you haven't. Well, you haven't, because no one has. Okay, let's leave it there. Glazers out.